Hi, I'm Chris Williams. I am the owner of it's a 2006 Chevy Cobalt, better known as the Frankenbolt. I've been building it for about 10 years. It's base model 2006 Cobalt LS that I originally just put a turbo on, and then it's progressed slowly, and now I am kind of steering the car into a sport front wheel drive style class ish front wheel drive drag car. It has slowly progressed from just being a stock bottom end 280 horsepower to now it made most recently on it was Ignite red E80, like it was their E85 race, I guess is what we would typically call it. It was their red, Ignite red, and I think it's like 115 octane or 116 or maybe some around there, and it worked really good. The car at it was on a 64 66 and 41 pounds of boost. It made 798 wheel horsepower. But even at like 12 pounds of boost, the car made 400 and I have a dyno sheet actually right here. So it was 435 and 326 torque at 12.3 pounds of boost. So at 12.3 pounds, it made 430 wheel horsepower, and I turned it up. At 41.5 psi. It saw 798 to the wheels with 650 foot-pounds of torque. And yeah, I was just dealing with some back pressure issues and stuff. I actually did run the car. It ran, so it was my name was 6466. 11:45 at 132, the fastest it's ever gone. But yeah, that's the car. It's here it is sitting here at my house. I have a little two-car garage where I do a little bit of car work and fabrication out of. I have a small little welding station. I recently purchased a TIG at the start of this year, start of 2020, Everlast 210 digital, and it's just mainly because of what I've been doing with this car. Just because of every time I need to do something, it ends up involving something custom, because again, it's a Chevy Cobalt and I turned it into a drag car, so there's not many things off the shelf designed to do that. And that's the thing with this car. That's why it's called, dubbed the Frankenbolt, because of the fact that it is a mixed match of custom made and off the shelf parts. So I pretty much used everything that I could that I really was designed the way I had wanted for drag racing, and I utilized as much of that stuff as I could. And then other than that, I was pretty much on my own as far as what I wanted to do with my whole turbo setup and everything else, because nobody really offers a tubular manifold for this car. It is a 2.2 liter Ecotec, and nobody really offers a well, at least a tubular turbo manifold for these. So I ended up having to load the car up on a trailer, tow it all the way down to California, and I had Sheepy build me a custom tubular manifold. That's this guy actually. Let's see what the little sheep on it. They brought it down to California and they custom did this guy for me, and it worked out really well. It was a very efficient tubular setup. I ended up running this with the 6466 dual ball bearing turbo, and that's when I made the 790 wheel horsepower with this kind of setup. But I currently live at 6,700 foot elevation in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're high desert, so we're really thin air up here, but we don't really because we're such high elevation. I'm really trying to strive the car to be extra efficient, like as efficient as it can be, and I never really ran this one with this manifold and everything with a turbo back pressure sensor, but I honestly, just by doing the dyno pulls, I could kind of tell that the car was seeing a lot more back pressure than it should be, being that well, in all my previous dyno pulls you can't really see in these two, but the car was making all the power so early in the power band. As soon as it made full torque, full boost, which is like, let's see, okay, it's making full boost around right at 6,000 RPMs, and then where was it making the peak power? Right after 6,000 RPMs. So right after it made full boost, it made full power and full torque right there, but everything in this motor is designed to be making power at the top of the RPMs, like it red lines at 8,500, but it's making power at 60, well, 6.5, 6,500, and it just wasn't flowing it out in the top end, and it's guaranteed a back pressure issue based on what the turbo was doing and everything else. It was just didn't seem too happy. It was happy at like 35 pounds, but anything more than that was really felt like it was pushing it out of its efficiency zone. And we're on a CO2 boost control setup. I have a Motion Raceworks CO2 setup in the car, so it will really see as much boost as I want it to see. The map sensor we actually tapped out before with at 41 pounds. Well, we tapped it at 41 pounds, but that's the max it would see before it was out of its frequency or whatever. So it wouldn't be able to see anything more than that. So we had to pretty much tap it pretty much there. We were at one point we ran 46 pounds of boost, but it just hit boost cut right away because it doesn't know what anything past that. So, but here is the car as it sits. I ditched the Megasquirt computer. It was actually sitting right there on that little plate. Ditched that, sold it to another gentleman, and I actually bumped it up to a Fuel Tech FT550. I got their custom, well, they're not their custom, their wideband as well with it because it's much faster. But the car slowly progressed to the point where I've needed to just do custom fabrication and welding and stuff because they don't really offer things off the shelf for these cars, and I've had to pretty much adapt a lot of stuff from the sport front-wheel drive Hondas and kind of try to see what those guys are doing and kind of jump on their bandwagon because they kind of seem like they know what they're doing. So I have a lot of custom stuff mixed with a lot of off-the-shelf stuff. Custom TBM brakes. I have custom, now I ended up just changing the whole custom turbo setup. Put the turbo up in the front, so the turbo's up in the headlight. That's also just about keeping the turbo as happy as it can be, because before the turbo was tucked so back behind the engine that it really wasn't happy. But now with the new setup, I built a custom tubular turbo manifold for it. So I actually built this guy. It's all wrapped now, but it's a 4-to-1, 1.5 inch schedule 10 pipe actually, and I built my own collector. It's a 4-to-1 collector, and it goes straight to a schedule 10 2.5 inch 90. Then 90s to a V-band, and then that's like a feed pipe from there down over to the turbo, which is 68mm precision It has a 60mm wastegate, 4-inch downpipe, well, up pipe, and I did all this custom turbo setup myself. To fit all of it, I had to do like a chromoly front removable crash, well, the radiator support, so that's all removable chromoly tube now. And I had to actually notch the frame rails, so the frame rail is just a chromoly tube now, coming from where the frame rail normally sits back there. The frame rail stops right there, and then the chromoly tube up to the bumper support. And there's actually a Maven mount coming off of that support that actually supports the turbo. So that's actually supported from underneath by the Maven mount. But this is kind of how the setup sits now. I did another, I actually contacted Maven for, after that I ended up getting their bulkhead connector. So I have their Durchwerk style connector, their removable bulkhead connector. So you can just disconnect it straight off the firewall, pull the whole harness up and out, and then you can actually just pull the whole harness off the engine. I've worked on this thing so many times that every time I try to work on it, I try to make it easier to work on because of the amount of work I do on it all the time. So I just want to try to do it once, and well, this is the 5th time doing it, it feels like, but now hopefully it should be right. And then I try to tuck and clean everything inside as far as the wiring. It has a I'm kind of all over the place. You may have to comment and tell me what I need to kind of focus on because there is a lot to cover with this car. It is a chromoly 10-point caged chassis. It's NHRA certified to 850s. There's the little sticker. And we ended up adding another extra 20 feet of chromoly tube after the fact, so there's an extra 20 feet after what you need with an 850 certification, which includes this bottom bar. So this bottom bar right here is extra, bottom bar on that side is extra, this bar going across is extra bracing that was not required, this bar going down from down up here to down there was extra. And yes, and then, oh yeah, and then this one, this extra little leg down right there, that was extra as well. We were actually going to put an X on the back too, but I actually told him not to, which I probably should have just, we should have just done it, might as well. Extra chromoly is not a bad thing, especially for structural stuff that's gonna help protect you in an impact. But yeah, here's the car as it sits. It has the skinnies on the rear. I do have a street set of tires hidden over there in the garage. Those are matching XXRs for the rear. Those match those. Those ones are 15 by 8. The other one's at 18 inches tall, and they're 8.5 inches wide. So they're staggered front to rear. So they have the meaty slick and the meaty drag radial in the front, and then just kind of stretch tire look in the back. It's cool. It's kind of more for the street kind of setup, but car doesn't really see much of the street now that it is on the TBM brakes. These brakes are super lightweight rotors. I don't know if it's coming up on the camera, you can barely see that, but they're super lightweight rotors, and there's not enough mass to them because they're just so thin. They will stop really good for a couple solid times, coming to a stop from like 160 plus. It'll do it, no problem. But then they need to be cooled down. They can't be driven on the street where you're just braking and then braking again and braking again, and you don't give them a break between the brakes, which it's not a good thing for rotors like that. And they have special race pads. I actually have them right here. Those are the custom race pads for the those rotors. So those ones that are on there, those are the street setup. But I've tried them on the street, and they weren't really too happy after just going around the block even. So I honestly still have my factory brakes because of that. So now I actually just change out the factory rotors and calipers, throw those on, and that's the street brake setup. And then I run that with those tires, and then it'll be on the street. But now with the new custom turbo setup, I don't know how much street driving I'm going to be doing. I might do a little bit just for fun. I still need to put in my spare Kirky. This seat over here is supposed to be for passenger ride-alongs, and then we can get some videos of some pulls in the car with the passenger. But I need to get a tubing bender to be able to bend some tube to throw that passenger seat in, but eventually I'll get there one day. But here's the car as it sits. It's pretty much ready to go. I just need to get the PMU tuned. So I pretty much need to, I ditched all of the relays and fuses in the car, so now it doesn't have a single relay and well, actually it has no relays but a single fuse for the actual power wire to the PMU. So this is the PMU, that is ECU Masters PMU 16, and that runs the whole car. I labeled all of them, so they're all the inputs and outputs are labeled for the PMU. But now that requires tuning, so I need to tune this to tell it which circuit is doing what and how it's controlled by what inputs and outputs. So certain ones are going to be just sending power to a ground, and then other ones are going to be triggered by a ground to send power. So like the turn signals are just sending a ground signal to the PMU on an input, and then it's telling that input's going to be telling an output to send power to the turn signal. And same thing with brakes, same thing with a lot of stuff. And then there's actually the fuel tech is actually analog triggering, which I also have it set up to through CAN, so it can be also set up doing it through CAN. And I have certain parameters I can set for what I want, but there's just a lot to it, and I'm still new at all this, so that is something that I have been kind of going slow with. So I pretty much got everything wired and soldered in, and it's pretty much ready to tune now. That and the fuel tech, but there's a lot of expensive hardware in this car, electronic wise. So last thing I want to do is damage any of it. So I've been kind of doing a lot of research before I jump right into it. The ECU Masters PMU does have it's a CAN keyboard. These are digital switches that are connected through CAN, so it's just 4 wires running from this keypad back to the ECU Masters PMU, and they're infinitely programmable. You can have it set up for different boost maps, you can have it set up for rolling anti-lag, you can have it set up for literally everything. I just got the generic 8 buttons just for like headlights, basic little things like that, but you know, these are never really permanent because fans are pretty much going to be on all the time. I don't know, and yeah, a lot of other stuff. So I still gotta figure out which buttons I really want to use for that. But I still have a AEM oil pressure gauge in here, but it's all running on the fuel tech now. The fuel tech monitors oil pressure, water pressure, turbo back pressure. It has coolant temperature. It has yeah, I pretty much tried to log fuel pressure. I tried to log as many things as I can. It's also watching front wheel speed and in sync with the rear wheel speed. I have 2 custom hall sensors. I have 1 front and 1 rear. I will go over those at one point, and those are just to detect front wheel slip. So whenever it detects the front wheel rotating at a different rate than the rear wheel, it will actually pull timing to actually try to help hold traction in the front. And you can actually set that up for a percentage of slip too, so you can have it set up to like 10% of slip, so it allows a little bit of slip so you keep wheel speed up, so you're not like bogging down the turbo, and you're actually keeping the turbo lit. And then you can actually go from there, and you can just you ramp it up, you know. So as you increase your speed, you can increase boost and kind of just go with as much traction as you have. Car does have the factory door panels on it. I'm eventually probably going to make some aluminum ones, but haven't gotten quite to that yet. I was just so focused on getting the main stuff that I wanted to get done. I have a couple big announcements to make in future videos of some other big changes to the car, which, you know, I just went through a whole custom turbo setup this year. So I got the TIG welder, and I just was either going to pay somebody to build me a custom turbo setup, or, you know, I thought it was a little bit more beneficial to just buy myself the TIG welder with the money I was going to spend to build it, and then actually just do the custom turbo setup myself. And I feel like this is the better way in the end. Just do it myself, and then I can progress it as far as I really want to go. And little did I know, at the start of this year, I would have had a forward-facing turbo setup that I built myself on my Cobalt. That's what this car does to me. It makes me progress my talents. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. I'm going to be trying to make as many videos as I can with the content that I can produce. Maybe slowing down now, but I can go over past stuff that I did and I didn't really do any sort of coverage over. So if you have anything in mind that you want me to post, or something that I can go in depth with, because I barely just covered the basics of the new setup, but even the internals of the motor, the transmission setup, the future setup, the future setup with the car, I mean, and then yeah, we can kind of go over pretty much everything, and then kind of show you what I have in mind for the future, because I can never really stand still with this car, and I have some pretty good big goals that I feel that the car should be able to do, but just figuring out how I'm going to get it there is the fun part. But if it was easy, everyone would do it. So like and subscribe.